I am the grammarian, and I see we have a guest, so welcome. My role is to introduce a new word to expand our vocabularies, and virtuoso is the word that I discovered today. It means that it is describing a person that is skilled, and usually it means in the fine arts. They are skilled, they have a very refined technique, and usually it refers to people in the music and performance arts. And the High Nooners is blessed with many verbal virtuosos that inspire great speaking in our club. Also, as a matter or as a duty of mine, I will try and reduce or count the numbers of speech connectors, ahs, ums, the usual stuff that as a group we try to avoid to improve our speaking abilities, and also to hopefully capture some really memorable phrases and sentences that our speakers provide with us today. And afterwards, I will give a report on my findings.
Next, I'd like to introduce Amy, who will be our virtuoso at the performance art of timing and navigating the new timer ball back there.
Wow.
Timer as performance art. I'm not sure how to fill that role, but I will do my best. Okay, instructions for the timer. I will be tracking the times in the back for our speeches, for table topics, and also for our evaluations. For our speakers, Sarah, you'll be giving me the time and the introductions, I'm hoping. And for you, at 2 minutes left, you'll be getting the green card so that you know you should be, you're aware of the time is coming toward the end. You've got 2 minutes left. At 1 minute, yellow, try to be wrapping up. And red means your time is up and we'd like you to finish and exit the stage so that all of the others who have prepared today have the opportunity to come up and speak. Our table topics, your goal is 1 minute. Boy, if you can get up here and speak for 1 minute on one of those table topics, you're doing great. You'll get the green card, which means congratulations. You're okay to finish now if you'd like. The yellow card means you're about 30 seconds from the end, and then the red card, please wrap it up. Evaluations, same sort of thing. At 2 minutes, you've reached the mark that we're looking for. 2.5, you've got 30 seconds left, and of course the red card, please exit the stage. I will give the timers report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Amy. And we'll get started with our first speaker. And our first speaker is Joe Sharp. He's requesting 10 to 12 minutes on his speech. And the title of Joe's speech is Get a Great Job. Please welcome Joe.
Many of you have heard that Wayne Gretzky, the Canadian hockey star, said, "A good hockey player plays where the puck is. A great hockey player plays where the puck will be." The future is exciting, and I'm going to try and encourage you to think about where your puck is going to become. I know you've got a good job now, but don't just play where you are. Look to see where you can go. We're surrounded by changes everywhere, in medicine, technology, and the internet. And I'm going to suggest that the way to find your new position is in 4 steps. 1, to dream. 2, to search. 3, to learn. And 4, to do. To start your dream, search every source you can think of. Your friends, your enemies, mail, the internet, and especially the professional literature and fields that you're interested in. In 1940, I was a youngster hired by my dad on Saturdays, and I got to use his big, noisy desk calculator. It made so much noise it shook the whole place. And in the evening, I saw Star Trek, and together they gave me a dream of what computers could do in the future. I told my dad, I want to use computers to make the world better. This was at a time when I couldn't own a cell phone, I couldn't own even a home TV. The technology was so primitive in those days. Step 2, search. Once you have a good dream, try to find a thought leader. Someone in a new field, new to you at least, who has a view of what's coming and is articulate. When I entered the graduate program at Berkeley in 1950, nobody even used the word computer. It just didn't exist. So I had to start reading professional literature. I used a source called IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. And I read everything I could that they wrote. One of them that I found, a lucky find, was a statistician from Bell Labs who had just studied the only big American computer at that time. It was called the ENIAC, and it was in the Moore School in Pennsylvania. And he had just made a study of it. Every Monday morning when they turned it on, a surge of power went through the machine and burned out hundreds of the vacuum tubes that they used there. And the poor users had to sit around all day Monday while they just did nothing but find those tubes and replace them. His conclusion was, these machines just aren't reliable. They're not going to be in general service. I put his magazine down on the table, very discouraged. And right next to it was an announcement of a talk that was going to be given that day by Professor Husky. The title of his talk was A Year with the ENIAC Computer. Well, you can imagine that I went to hear him talk. And it was an incredible talk. He talked about finite state machines and programming and building computers. It was very hard for me to understand everything he said. But he said one thing that meant an awful lot to me. While he was in Pennsylvania, somebody got a bright idea. Don't turn the computer off. Leave it running all weekend. It wasted power, but they got a lot more computing done on Monday. After the talk, I had to go talk to him. I told him, you know, I want to work in computing, but I don't have any of that background you just mentioned. It's just all new to me. He said, nobody does. We'll take anybody. Sign me up. Well, obviously he was the thought leader I was looking for, and he became my research advisor. So I depended a lot on him. But there was a special bonus which I didn't expect. He was building a small computer in his bedroom. It would be the prototype of the first PC in America. It was the only computer in the whole campus. So I was pretty excited about that. So step 3 is to learn. He gave a couple of simple courses on hardware and software, but they were just the beginning. I needed to know more, and I kept reading IEEE articles, plus he kept getting articles, preprints of articles from friends of his from all over the world. So I really learned a lot of theory from him. But you don't learn a new tool from theory only. You have to get practice. He taught me how to program his machine. And just for practice, I wrote a bunch of library programs for him. but it was really to learn how to use the machine. So the combination of the theory that I learned and the practice I got with his machine made me the first Berkeley campus computer science virtuoso.
Oh.
Thanks for that lovely word.
Wow.
Well, step 4 is to do. After I left practice, studying and everything, I had a bunch of small jobs. But I finally ended up working at GE to help build an operating system. In order to test this new system, I wrote a bunch of programs based on a new theory of image processing that was developed at Bell Telephone Laboratories. And you can probably imagine that I also used it to improve my own photographs. You can't resist a thing like that. But next to me, they were trying to build a medical imaging machine. And everybody was terribly disappointed because the pictures were blurry. They were awful. They were not usable. They made fast pictures. They were fast enough to stop the body, but they were all blurred. So this was my chance to make the world better. On my own, I used my new image processing tools to improve the performance of that machine to the point where they produced medically useful images. Obviously, the staff was pretty excited about that, and it made a big profit for GE. But the real satisfaction came for me this year when I learned that 70% of all living Americans have had their health care improved by CT images based on my machine, my approach. Maybe even some of you have family members who've had CT pictures made. So this is the whole point. If you get into a new field, you get chances to do things like that that will just make your life very exciting. So now it's your turn. It's time now to make things happen. Don't let your present good job block you. Go ahead and try and find the next great job. Take these 4 steps. Dream, search, learn, and do. There are so many new opportunities ready to present to you. You to earn great pride in your work and get recognition and make profit for your company. Your next great job can offer these rewards. Start looking for it today.
It just said barber. It just came up with barber. Get to the barber.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
I was almost 19 years old, and for the first time, I was bringing a boyfriend with me to midnight mass. This was when my big family all still went to church. Even my Uncle Tim, who always would rock in Grandpa's chair and say, "Look, Ma, I got my holy jeans on, I'm ready for church." On Sundays, which he never really went, was there at midnight mass. And I sat next to him, and my boyfriend was on the other side of me. When it came time to sing Joy to the World, my Aunt Teresa joined in one measure way too early. The rest of the congregation managed to either start at time or a little bit behind as to not be too noticed. After service, my Uncle Tim, standing there smoking his own cigarette, told me, "You know, Melissa, I never realized you had a beautiful voice. You should really quit the smoking and join the church choir. You know, a lot of great singers have gotten their start there." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. I cocktail waitress that night. I don't get done until 2:30 in the morning. The place is full of smoke anyway, and I'm not quitting." No, I was really cool.
Hallelujah, 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 Alleluia, alleluia.
I was 31 and I was at my grandfather's funeral. It was the first time I had been back to church in a very, very long time. And as I sat there and stood there and kneeled there and stood again and put my hands together in prayer, I realized that I knew exactly what to do. I knew how to mourn his loss. I knew almost every word to every song that was sung that day and most of the words to the prayers. About 2 weeks later, I was listening on the radio and I heard a woman say, you know, when we leave our faith because there's something we don't agree with, when there's some ideas we maybe don't completely believe, when we leave for that reason, our faith loses its opportunity to evolve. Our community can't change because we've decided not to be a part of it and to turn our back on it. And with it being so close to the proximity of my grandfather's funeral, I thought, well, maybe there's something to it. And I went and I spoke with the faith formation gentleman, and he shared with me that it was fine not to agree with anything so long as I understood that I was technically wrong in the eyes of the church, but that's okay. It's okay. It's fine. I will still love you. And so I began to go back and I started to join in the choir because it had been something I'd always dreamt about, but had never had the courage to do. And I volunteered to do the 8 a.m. services, not knowing that I would be the only alto. And as a person who always sang soprano, but whose voice had fallen over the years, I didn't know so much about harmonizing. And a new father came to our church not long after. And one day, after just wanting to sing while standing in front of the congregation singing, after service he said to me, Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your gift of music. And I can tell you, I did not feel like a virtuoso that day. But I did feel very appreciated. And so I kept coming back. And sometimes I would drift, and this past year has been one of my first full years with the choir.
Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
And at this Midnight Mass this year, I'm 36, I'm divorced. None of my family members are there because of so many reasons. And I'm with the choir. And I get to sing the Alleluia chorus at the end for the first time. And in Handel's Messiah, in the Alleluia chorus, it is tradition for the audience to stand during the singing of it. And those who remained for that closing stood, sang Alleluia, and it was fast and furious and magical, and the many, many sheets of music I tore through, some of them written in German when I really needed the English, were just, oh, it was so much fun. And at the end of the service, the end, one of the women in my choir, her husband Bob, was there. And he came up to me and he said, Melissa, I have a gift that I want to give you. He said, oh, okay. He's like, will you be here tomorrow? Of course, I'm taking every advantage to sing Advent songs of the choir. And he said, okay, it's an image of Mother Mary. It's a print that I picked up in Medjugorje. It's a town in Bosnia in which 2 different people have visions of Mother Mary at 2 different days of the month. And the print has been blessed by Mother Mary, and it's been blessed by a priest. And he and I, the next day, when he gave me the print, which was so beautiful, I almost wept when I saw it. He shared with me the story of Saint Therese, who was very important and essential in his life. And I said, hold on, Saint Therese? The little flower? And he said, yes. I said, I wrote a note on my computer 3 weeks ago after having found a random Post-it and went, you know what, I know I really need to read this. And it was so beautiful to have this conversation. And while my family wasn't there, I began to recognize this greater sense of family, greater sense of community, and the joy and beauty in that. But even more so, that power of ritual that I was blessed in experiencing because of my grandfather's insistence on church.
the place where I can always go back to find strength, because the stained glass windows, they're still there. The ceiling that looks like the bottom of a ship, it's still the same ceiling. The same lights hang, the same fans spin. So much is the same. The words, almost every one, is the same. They've made it a little more correct with the word. But almost everything is the same. And in a world where maybe you can't rely on everyone in your life, the ritual, it's always there.
And you only have 1 minute for evaluation.
Developing. I do, however, am a firm believer of constant improvement and evaluation. So part of that evaluation got me into studies to learn about myself. I have also become a little more free-form with some of my hobbies as well. The new Timer Light project went a lot faster over the week this last week than it would have even a year ago. Working with computers, you get so honed in on tolerances and precision that you almost forget to have fun with stuff and to go with the flow. So, no, not so much making a definitive resolution, but I do resolve to be a little more easygoing, to be a little more self-evaluating, and of course, just to have fun.
Okay, does anyone want to volunteer for the second one? Okay, and it's, what is the last book you read? And just
Thank you, Mr. Professor. I am a slow reader. I have a tendency to start reading something at 10 o'clock at night and read it in bed. That usually doesn't work very well. The book that I'm currently reading through, I've read a number of times, starting with when I was a child, is James Herriot's second book. I have to go through the little poem to remember which is, it's not all creatures great and small, it must be all things bright and beautiful. So I read a chapter maybe a night, and if I'm lucky, I'm 2 chapters. Usually after 1 chapter, it's like, I can't make it. I read these books because it's enjoyable, it helps me go to sleep that much better, and I can relate to these stories of these old farmers and doing unusual things. Reading is a great joy. You can learn many, many different things. My green card is up, so I was just like, I can't say anymore.
Anybody else want to volunteer? Okay, and it's, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Master Toastmaster, Topic Master, and Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guest. What was the question?
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
I knew it, I just was stalling. What was the best question, advice I have ever gotten? The best advice I have ever gotten was from a teacher in my senior year in high school named Mr. Bender. He was right, even though it was embarrassing for him to tell me this. I went home and thought about what he told me. I'm getting there. I'll tell you in a second what he told me. And I thought about what he said, and I realized that he was right and that I had no idea, I had never even considered what he told me as being an issue. So what he told me was, I was in his advanced college prep class getting ready to be a good writer, to go off to Gustavus Adolphus College and know how to write well. And he told me, you know, I wrote a paper, what did I write a paper on? I wrote a crappy paper. I turned it in, I think I got a C or something, and he goes, you know, you could be a good writer, and if you would just stop socializing and actually care about the homework. And I was like, what? I get straight A's. Whoa. And then I went home and thought and thunk, and it hit me like a dagger in my heart. Oh my gosh, that's all I do is hello, hello, hello. I'm like, oh, well, I'll show him. I can be serious. So I had to do a research paper, and I actually decided not to make it up. I actually did real research, and I got an A on my paper, and it was on anorexia and bulimia, and I went to listen to focus groups and groups where the girls are, not focus groups, groups where the girls are sitting together talking about their problems, and did research and all that, and then I had to give a speech on my research and present the research, and I got an A, and I'm like, well, that's what it feels like to be a serious student. So I took that with me, so that was the best advice I've ever gotten that I could think of.
Okay, anybody else want to volunteer for the last one?
Jeez, that's embarrassing.
I will.
Okay.
Okay.
And since it's the end of the holidays, what's your favorite holiday and why?
I would say that my favorite holiday is probably for sure Christmas, but it is equal, it might be pretty close to Halloween too. It's hard for me to pick between Christmas and Halloween. I think the reason why I like Christmas a little bit more is because of the fact that I get to be with my family, and I find that I mean, I've always liked to be with my family, but as I've gotten older and now obviously I don't live with them anymore, it's that much more fun to be able to be around them and see everyone, and I just realize how much time passes between seeing people sometimes, and so being able to see them at Christmas was definitely fun this year, and it's fun every year. Another reason why I love Christmas is because I love presents. And people always laugh at me, and they think I don't know what the word would be, but that I just like want to hoard all these presents. But I love getting presents for other people too. I think that's become my favorite thing about the holiday season, is that I spend a lot of time thinking of what to get people, and I ask a lot of questions of what people want, because it's way more fun for me to be able to give a gift and have somebody open it and know that they're going to love it, versus me out just like shopping by myself and thinking maybe they'll like this, and then having them open it and be disappointed, because I figure, why did I buy your gift in the first place then? Or gift cards, I don't like gift cards. I feel like that's just, hey, let's exchange money, and why did I do that? So, so I think the food, being with family, and presents are what makes Christmas my favorite.
Thank you, Nate. Great comments. Okay, next we'll be moving to the evaluation phase of our meeting, and for that, I will pass it over to Thomas, our general evaluator.
Fellow Toastmasters, yes. My portion of the meeting as general evaluator is to introduce our two speech evaluators to evaluate our fellow speeches, as well as introduce the grammarian and the timer, and then to offer an overall viewpoint of how the meeting flowed. So to start off, I will introduce Gailey to comment on Joe's speech.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and most especially Joe. I love this speech, How to Get a Great Job. Thought this speech was just fabulous. I loved it from the very beginning until the very end. And I will start out with your beginning. I loved the quote, a good hockey player plays where the puck is, and a great hockey player plays where the puck will be. And I think that's so important and just definitely caught my attention because I wanted to know more about what your speech was going to be about. And I think the fact that you laid out steps in the very beginning of basically how to go get your dream job was really helpful because we knew what was going to be coming, and you definitely took time to walk us through each of the steps that you explained, which was dream, search, learn, and do. And then the way that you gave an example for every step along the way was really nice too, because it could help us envision, you know, maybe what we could do for ourselves or the steps that you took in order to find your dream job. So the criteria for this was, did the speaker make his or her proposal understood? I think it was we understood very well with both your use of the quotes and with laying out the steps and providing examples. All of that really helped us to understand the purpose of your speech. And I thought that your speech was very positive and that you showed a lot of enthusiasm. And I think especially when you were taking us through, when you were little, working with your dad's noisy desk calculator and then watching Star Trek, and that you told your dad that you wanted to use computers to make the world a better place. And then moving forward to when you were at Berkeley, just really knowing that you wanted to go into computer science, and you know, even if it wasn't really an established field at that time, you went out, found all the literature that you could, you know, found experts in the field. I think the thought leader as part of the search, that was really interesting and good advice. You basically, yeah, found every opportunity to go out and just learn more and more, and took the first opportunity that was available to be able to do research and to work with your mentor. And I think all of that really put into that learning perspective for you. So that was a good example to give. Next part of this is, did the speaker show advantages of going with his proposal? And I think so. You highlighted some main things that if you do get your dream job or really are going after your passion or working in the field that you want to, there's a bigger chance that you're going to have recognition for your work, excitement in your work, satisfaction, all of that. And yeah, I think overall it was just a really good speech, and I think that, you know, you said in the beginning, we all have good jobs right now, but jobs evolve and change over time, and so it's always good to just be looking out and thinking of what your great job could be in the future and where you might want to go, and just to really take action to do that. So that was a really good speech.
Next we'll invite Tanya up to evaluate Melissa's speech.
Thank you. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and most importantly, Melissa. Melissa was telling us, let's get personal story from the storytelling manual titled Ritual. And was the point of the story well developed? Yes, it was. I'm going to read some of the things I wrote, and then I'm just going to give you some. I have one piece of constructive criticism. I really don't, but I had to make one up. And then after I made it up, I thought, well, maybe. So you really have to, don't quote me on it or change anything just because I said that. All right, so I love how you started with Alleluia, and I loved how you used your alto, which you're not familiar with, and I'm a high soprano, and now I'm singing second soprano because, and so yes, getting in that lower range, that's hard. I loved how it was mellow, oaky, the tonality set the mood for the acoustics I felt it set the mood for the acoustics in St. Francis of Assisi. Had it been high and flighty, it wouldn't have the same effect. So it was nice that you're using the notes you're being charged to use as the one alto in the choir. That is a small choir. I liked how you I felt the climax was at the point of the funeral, and then the additional stories afterwards helped, but maybe I was wrong, because I'm not really good at, I haven't attended classes on one, but to me, I really thought, okay, the point there, where it broke you, and started to make you think differently, was at the climax of the funeral. And so that's where I felt, okay, I get it, okay. So, when you attended church before that with all your relatives, you could have just said with multitude of like 20 or 30 relatives, just number them, because I was starting to try to get to the names, Uncle Joe, Mom, Uncle Tim, Uncle Bob, different people, and some of them you gave us their descriptions, some you didn't. You could not name the ones you don't give us descriptions of, because we'll just keep wondering later, do I have to hold on to that name in case she's gonna bring him up later? Okay. I love, there are a lot of things you cannot do in the Catholic Church, so I was a little afraid. That really helped me get the character of the person and the depth of the meaning of that. I didn't remember your grandpa was making you, was really strongly into making you go to church, and then you said it later, so I'm like, okay. You know, so maybe you missed something, maybe you forgot something there, I'm not sure. I love the I don't know if this is an alliteration, but if it is, I sat, I stood, I kneeled, I stood again, together in prayer, sat and stood again, whatever that is called in literature. I loved it, because that's what we do too. The ceiling church, I'm not going to steal it from Marion's notes. So you're always, I love how you present, I love how you look up, I love your pausing, your phrasing, your eye contact, the tactileness with which you speak that makes us have sensory experiences. The new additional story of Bob giving you the gift and the from the Mary thing, I liked how that brought into about the meaning of your faith to us, or the meaning of ritual to us. But going back to right before that, before you meet him, you could pause at the point you say that this is when you're 36, you're there at midnight mass. You know, you're telling us you were alone, you were with the choir, and you were there at midnight mass, and then I would take a little heartbeat pause, so that we're stuck listening, and then say, with no relatives, with no family around me, another heartfelt pause, another pause somehow, and say, for numerous reasons, whatever words you said, I love the words you said, I could have used more pause, so it could have sunk in a little harder, because I had to find myself, I was still affected by that, but you were telling me more. I kind of wanted to feel that a little bit longer. So that we could let the solitude of how that would feel settle more into our bones and stomachs. But that was a very good story to tell, and I'm glad you're enjoying the choir, because I am too. Very good job.
Next, I will ask Chris to come up and present the River Ranger report.
Did we do? We had quite a few. Oh, no. Kaylee, I think we did more than half the today.
Probably.
We had a few from Tanya, but we all had a few. I don't count mine because I think I'm exempt. Not really. Joe, you did have a lot of good phrases. Thank you for using the word of the day. I love the thanks for the word of the, thank you for that wonderful word in the middle of your speech. I knew you were talking to me. That was, thank you. A little personal connection there. I also liked, don't let the present good job block you. And I thought you wanted to say from the future. I think, if I remembered right, I was still writing. Don't let your present good job block you. I think that was all you said, but that's like, I added in from the future. And I think that is something that, again, spoke to me for various reasons. Melissa, as a fellow young fort builder, I totally pictured my own little church and daycare. And when you use the curtains, I could just picture the light coming in, everything being lit up with, I grew up with like lace curtains, so it was just prettier in my head too. I don't know if that was pretty either. And I also love the okay to disagree as long as you know you're wrong. I have family like that too. I want to ask you, Tanya, do you ever get inspiration from cartoon or fictional characters? Because I got the image of Winnie the Pooh and I thought and I thought and I thunk and I thunk. And I just
Yes.
loved it. I just loved it. I got Winnie the Pooh out of that one. You can tell that I had a very mentally stimulating meeting today, and I'm not going to ruin it anymore. I think I'm just going to say we had 3 uses of the word of the day that I could count. And with that, I'll turn it back to the general manager. Thank you.
And last of all, call up Amy to present the message.
The timers report. Joe, 9 minutes and 39 seconds. I didn't even have to touch the remote thing for the light when you were speaking. You asked for 10 minutes, so you were just shy of it. Melissa, 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Just barely over, but really, really good. And I had goosebumps, just so you know, the pausing part, it was fantastic. Chris, for your table topic, 1 minute 29. John, who has left us, 1 minute 5. Tanya, 2:17. Kaylee, 1:42. Very good. Kaylee, evaluation, 3:34. And Tanya, your evaluation, 4:12.
Oh,
That was good.
I didn't even look at that. Sorry.
That, my friends, is the timer's report.
Yay.
Before I hand it back over to our Toastmaster, just to offer general suggestions or comments from what the meeting looked like. Looked like we started approximately on time, just after 12:05. As our Toastmaster said, a lot of people filled in roles and helped accommodate things on a very quick basis, which helped facilitate the meeting. I thought the speeches were very well done. I thought the evaluations offered great suggestions. Thank you for the table topics. They seemed very diverse and festive for the time of the year we're at. So overall, I thought the meeting was flowed pretty well. I thought most of the speeches were within the time frame or roughly at the end of it. And I thought we did a good job.
Great meeting. I don't have any additional comments. I enjoyed the table topics and the speeches. We've heard from a lot of really different angles, different things today. I really appreciated that. And thanks everybody for coming. And again, thanks for coming. And feel free to come back as many times as you want. If you want to join, let us know. And hopefully, Sarah, you'll join soon and keep it. We're finishing a couple minutes early today.
Fantastic.
Hey, what's that?
Fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah,
Yeah.
everything went great. Thanks again, Amy, for allowing yourself to defer.
No
And
problem.
I'm sure there will be opportunities in a future meeting for a speaker.
Yeah.
So, all right, with that, have a great day. Stay warm.
Sure.